friends, it's Deanna Willison with Our Catholic Life, and I'm back. This is episode 2, covering Man and Woman. He created them by John Paul II. It is the Theology of the Body that is printed by Pauline Books and Media in 2006. It is such a chunky monkey, though. I really can't give you an overview of it in just one video. I tried to start out with the review and it went to a half an hour, so I feel like I need to give you a second one. The first one covers a lot of technicalities about the numbering system and the different editions that are out there in the world. So if you're trying to use this book for any sort of class, you're going to want to go back and watch that first video. I also gave you some of the reviews, we looked at some of the table of contents, and there was a sample. So it's a worthwhile video on its own. This is going to look at some of the other features of the book and read some different segments. So they're great to watch together. Let's look at this. This is Mary. I can't pronounce her last name for the life of me. She's a professor of theology at John Paul II Institute for Studies on Marriage and the Family at Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. And she says the publication of this new translation of John Paul II's extraordinary catechesis on Man and Woman, He Created Them, a Theology of the Body, is almost as an important event as it is its appearance in English for the first time in 1981. Not only is it an accurate, consistent translation from the official Italian text, but it reintroduces the author's own original emphases. It clears up confusion caused by the indiscriminate use of words such as lust for desiderio and concupiscencia, mistranslations that have gravely obscured key aspects of redemption of the body. Above all, through research in the papal archives and recourse to John Paul II himself, Waldstein has supplied the original headings from the Polish edition, which enable the reader to grasp the work's structure as a whole and the integration of its parts. Waldstein's introduction is, in its own right, a significant contribution to the thought of John Paul II. Scholar and lay reader alike have reason to be profoundly grateful. Well, that's... all of the reviews seem to agree on those key points, so I will spare you reading them all. You could probably find them elsewhere or put it in the comments below if you'd like to hear more about those. Again, this does have a nihil obstat. Who is it from? William E. May, Ph.D., and the imprimatur is from His Eminence Sean Cardinal O'Malley, OFM Cap, Archbishop of Boston, on August 10th, 2006. I will say what confused me most in the first video was there's such an interesting outline. It's not standard or outline form, right? How this is all just the introduction, and then this seems right. It's numbered out, and then A, B, C, D. It's when you get into the contents of the book that it gets confusing, because here it's like part 1, chapter 1, and then number 1. And then when you get back in that section, let's see where it says that starts on page 131. So it has a pretty decent introduction, which I feel is going to be really important to understanding the book. Let's look at 131. And it does start with a number 1. Now we have section 1, chapter 1, number 1, and then this number 1. This number 1, that big number 1, is different from the next, because I'm going to turn the page and see then there's there must have been a 2 in there. There's a 3, 4, 5, and then look, there's a big number 2 again. It's divided up, it's numbered. That's all explained way in the back. Way in the back. When you get to systems of reference to TOB. That is going to be so important if you're using this book for any class. Let's look at some of the other back features. I'm going to tell you while I'm doing that, skipping to that page, page numbers are in the center bottom of the page. What you see in the outside corner are those reference numbers we were talking about. Those chapter headers and things that are in the front of the book, they aren't exactly what's here. It's not that simple, so don't count on that. You're going to want bookmarks, and you're going to want these. You're either going to be using this number, the system of reference that it discusses in the back, because there's 4 different English numbering systems, so it's important to know which one you're using. And the page numbers are in the center bottom. So page number center bottom, This is going to be your section numbers. They are massively important, but completely different. Let's look here then, what is in the back. There is a conclusion. Surprise, surprise, there's actually a conclusion. It says, translator's note, this heading has been inserted by the published Polish edition immediately before the 5th paragraph of TOB 133 2, the reflection carried out. The text before this paragraph is not present in the Polish edition. So it has a whole number 1, a 133 1. It'll make sense if you read that note in the back or watch the first video. So the conclusion is pretty short. It's just a couple of pages. And then we start at the bibliography. Let's give a look for this. It has recommended studies, and then it gives citations for those books in alphabetical order. 2 is study guides and presentations. And they appear to be in a number of languages, as well as some of these resources are media, like DVDs and things. They may be digitized now, as well as some are books, some are articles. So again, what was one? One was recommended studies. 2 is study guides and presentations. 3 is selected studies. Why is that different than the other 2? I don't know. There's quite a few pages on selected studies. Okay, so selected studies, there's page after page of those. So those are, they look like they're more articles, and there's many, many of them. So those are probably just going to be other highlighted ones, but the most important ones are probably going to be 1, the recommended studies, and 2, study guides and presentation, but pretty thorough to give us a page after page of other selected ones. What does the format look like? It's standard academic format, really. You're going to figure that out. That long dash there just means it's the same author as above. They don't write the same last name twice. Let's see what else here. Index of words and phrases. The index is based on the Italian text and is thus independent of the English translation. That's very interesting. English translations often differ or overlap according to context. For words marked with an asterisk, only a selection of references is presented. So there's more references than they're giving you. It's a little wonky there. So that's a unique thing too, something also to be aware of before you try to use the index of words and phrases. So they're going to give you the English word, possibly, or a Latin word, and then in parentheses it may have the Italian word. So like affection, and in parentheses affecto, 17 times. And it tells you by section numbers, not by page numbers. So 17 times, it's in 94.8, 95.1, 4, 104.2, 109.1, 111.2, 115.3, 128.6, 129.1, and 6, 132.2, and it says see also, and so it may cross-reference you as well. So they're going to give you the English word, but then the Italian word in parentheses. Like I said, occasionally it's a Latin word first instead. So again, those are not the page numbers, those are the section numbers. These are done by, Body has quite a lot. I mean, you can imagine it's Theology of the Body. So they actually break it up into at least 3 sections. Body is corpo, and that is listed 1,319 times. So it just gives you a little definition. The purpose of the body. The body has been created to transfer the mystery of divine Trinitarian love into the visible world, and you can find it at 19.4. Then it has body 1, fundamental concepts, and then you're going to look up the different fundamental concepts by phrase, and it's going to be a regular index. Body 2 is the order of the meaning of the body, and those are all going to be referenced. There is a body 3, the order of experiencing or reading the meaning of the body. Again, you're going to look up key phrases there. Is there a body 4? There is. Body 4, the drama of the fall and redemption of the body. So like concupiscence of the body, constraint of the body, redemption of the body, redemptive meaning of the body, ethos of the body, spirituality of the body, pedagogy of the body, resurrection of the body. Shoo! There's only 4 of them. Then the next one is bodily. But it has had subheadings as well. Very interesting. Oh my goodness, friends. Such a thorough index of words and phrases. But again, this is translated from the Italian. So it makes sense that the index is going to come from the Italian, because if you're cross-comparing, you're going to need that information. Let's see here. What's after the index? The index is pretty hefty, I'm not going to lie. And you can see why. Then there is a scripture index, and it does start with Genesis. As you can imagine, quite a chunk is from Genesis. No lie there. What is after that? Oh, then the rest, there's more Genesis on the second page of it. The others are much shorter. It does include the full Bible as used by Catholics, so it includes like Second Maccabees is in here. Sirach, cheering, it's also listed as Ecclesiasticus. Let me show you that. It's in parentheses. Can you see here? Sirach is right in the middle page. Ecclesiasticus right underneath it. So different Bibles use slightly different titles. It depends on whether it comes from the Greek or the Hebrew text sometimes. Let's see here. Anything else? Nope. Well, it's interesting then, because Revelation just says Revelation. It doesn't also include Apocalypse. So that's not a standard format. It just happened for one book. Then it has the whole systems of reference to the TOB. Well, that was interesting. Oh, there was a folded up page, which does look like it was accidental, but has drawn me to something very interesting. There's a page. Page that has something very odd in it. I'm back here. What's the page? 607. Suddenly we have a box, and it doesn't have text in the whole box. See, there's a huge amount missing. And then when you flip the next page, it happens here too. That could be one of the B sections that are mentioned in the back. I'm not sure. Does that happen anywhere else? I'm going to flip through and look for that quick. I'm not seeing that elsewhere in the book. That's really interesting. Because it starts on the word sets. Sets the language, and it's lowercase, so it's like in the middle of a sentence. Does that come from a page before? Yes, it does. Aha! Okay, it's listed over here. First of all, it says number 116 was not actually delivered. It was not given in the papal addresses. See, not delivered. It lets you know. But then over here is where those boxes start, and it says number 4, the prayer of Tobias 8:5-8, which is above all a prayer of praise and thanksgiving, then of petition. Comma sets the language of the body on the train of the essential themes of theology of the body. It is an objectivized language, filled throughout not so much with the emotive strength of experience, but rather with the depth and weight of the true experience itself. Yes, so that number 4 for that is in a tan or a little grayscale box. I wonder if that is used a couple other places, but there's pages where it's just a completely blank gray box. There may be a reason for that somewhere. I hadn't run into that before, but there are some others. So those are notes. I did not run into that before. But it's back here a lot when we get into the Song of Songs. And I know that the Song of Songs was greatly condensed when it was given. So I'm not sure. A lot of it says not delivered, though. Okay. Here it is. Translator's note. I found it on page 548. It is a huge footnote that carries on for several pages, honestly. We've got to read it, though, because this is wildly important, and why this translation is important. This edition. Translator's note. The catechesis on the Song of Songs in Tobit, originally prepared by John Paul II, are printed on the left-hand pages. The shorter catechesis he actually delivered are found on the right, marked by the shading. For details, see pages 731-2. That's what I was talking about in the back of the book. We cover that in the first review. UD contains 5 footnotes on the Song of Songs. The Insegnamenti text, only the first 3. Since John Paul II omitted a piece of text in the shorter version, he relocated footnotes 95 and 96 and pushed footnote 97 to a latter positions. And it goes on. Hefty footnotes there, but that's why that is. So the shaded box is what was actually delivered And what was not delivered, but originally written and meant to be presented, is on the regular pages without the shading. And again, that is covered in the back of the book or the first review I gave. I don't think that happens anywhere else. It's the first time I've noticed that. I thought I had flipped through quite a bit before too, so surprising to me. Let's try and look. We had looked a little bit at Christopher West's talk in the beginning, but let's look. The introduction, like I say, is quite extensive. Sorry, kids, there's geometry. Don't be frightened. There is an example. Oh, I wonder if kids are going to start doing this in Catholic school when it's a geometry lesson. The main angle of the triangle that has two rays coming from it says 1, to love is to give oneself. 2 is the right angle at the bottom. The spousal love of man and woman is the paradigmatic case of a total gift of self and our experience. And both of those, and the other ray from to love is to give oneself is going up to 3, and 3 is also coming down to 2. So 3 is the Trinity is the exemplar of love and gift. That they're calling that the sanguinist triangle. Well, now do we want to know what it is, or do you want to find on your? Let's look at that just a little bit. This is in the section number 2 in the introduction. It's called Wojtyła's Carmelite Personalism. A. Gaudium et Spes 24.3 in the Sanguinist Triangle. Pascal Ide has traced Gaudium et Spes 24.3 through John Paul II's vast literary output and shown that it plays a key role in the comprehensive theology of gift developed by John Paul II, particularly in Man and Woman He Created Them. And there are footnotes here as well, friends. This passage from Gaudium et Spes reads, Indeed, the Lord Jesus, when he prays to the Father that all may be one as we are one, John 17:21 through 22, and thus offers vistas closed to the human reason, indicates a certain likeness between the union of divine persons and the union of God's Son in truth and love. This likeness shows that man, who is the only creature on earth which God willed for itself, cannot fully find himself except for a sincere gift of self, referencing Luke 13:33. It has in parentheses 24:3. Two fundamental principles are contained in the last sentence of this text. First, God wills human beings for their own sake, for their own good. Persons should thus not be used as mere means. Wojtyła calls this principle the personalistic norm. Second, persons can only find themselves in a sincere gift of self. A triangle of these triangle of theses connected with the second of these two principles runs like a deeply embedded watermark through the works of Wojtyła / Pope John Paul II, from his doctoral dissertation, Faith According to St. John of the Cross, which was published in 1948, all the way through to his last encyclical, Ecclesia de Eucharista, 2003. And then I've already showed you the triangle. The first point in the triangle is a general account of love as a gift of self. From this point, one line extends horizontally to the thesis that the gift of self is present with particular completeness in the spousal love between man and woman. Another line, I would say another ray, it's not a line. It's a ray. It's properly called a ray, sorry. Another line extends upward diagonally to the analogous application of the same account of love to the Trinity. Love and gift take place in complete fullness in the begetting of the Son and the procession of the Holy Spirit. See Dominum et Vivecantum 10, just quoted above. The descending line from the point 3 to point 2 represents the thesis that communion between created persons, particularly the communion of spousal love between man and woman, flows as an image from God's own Trinitarian communion. Gaudium et Spes 24:3, expanded in this way by a characteristic triangle, constitutes the very core of Wojtyła / John Paul II's philosophical and theological personalism. Wojtyła first encountered this personalism in the works of St. John of the Cross. The latter encounter, which the personalism of Kant and the very different personalism of Schiller enriched this Carmelite point of departure, but left its fundamental structure intact. The fundamental structure of Kant's personalism, and Schiller's as well, is different. Wojtyła adopted neither the one nor the other. And then we're going to discuss Latoya's encounter with St. John of the Cross and the sanguinis triangle in detail. We're going to go further into detail of that triangle. It's interesting, there's also a chart here that has St. John of the Cross, Latoya, and John Paul II. So Latoya is the in-between in his developmental stages. This is probably from that doctoral dissertation, and then probably from his encyclicals. 52. Yep, from an encyclical. Then we have Latoya and Kant. So this is making more sense. Bacon, Descartes, and a new subjectivity. So he's taking us through philosophies, both Catholic and not Catholic, and showing us the development of thought. This is really interesting. I like how that's very thoroughly done in the introduction. I probably wouldn't have grasped all that from just doing the reading. I see why they say this introduction is important. Now, some of you may be panicking, saying, I've never read philosophy. I've just been reading very tiny overviews here. If you need to, I do have a book review on a philosophy book that is published, I believe it's by Seton Press. That is a really interesting book review. It's a really interesting book just to give you the basic terms of philosophy. I don't know that you need them for this book, but if you haven't had that yet, you may really want to go back and just read those so you know just the basics. You'd have some groundwork from which to get some of this. You may not need it, but it may help you to go more deeply into it. Like I'm always telling students, I haven't taught in a couple years since the pandemic, but when I tutor for chemistry, it's very interesting that chemistry only has algebra in it. But students will understand it more fully who are studying not algebra, not geometry, but algebra 2. Why students in algebra 2 understand chemistry better when they only need algebra to do it? Why is it better to have algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 before you start chemistry? The only way I can explain it is patterns in your brain. Your brain is in there lighting up, making all kinds of great connections and giving you just fundamental processes for your brain to use. And word problems. Oh, so many of you are going to groan. And if you're groaning, it's because you've never been told how to do a word problem. There is a system for attacking a word problem. And if you don't understand that language and that process, jumping in can be very confusing to a lot of people who aren't visual learners. Visual learners sometimes have a better luck when there's like a diagram to go with a word problem. Even as a kid, I always drew a diagram as soon as I saw a word problem. It was instinct for me. I very much am a visual learner, and so I need that. That's why I highlight and annotate books and things. I need that extra sensory bit in there. Not everybody's wired that way, or not everybody is great at making charts and graphs. I happen to enjoy it. It makes sense of the world for me to make charts and graphs. And so you may not need a philosophical background. You may not need a rich prayer life. You may be a person who just walks in from the street and this all makes beautiful sense to you. And there are other books that even break it down even more simply. But if you have the background and you would like to study theology of the body, I will encourage you, just from what I'm seeing, you may want to have a guide. You may want to take a guided course on it. Now, I know there's video courses put out by actually a company called Theology of the Body, TOB. But there's other people who teach classes on it as well. Or you may want to have, if you have a background in philosophy already, you could probably jump in. But you may want some other things and not to jump straight into this book. But do I think it's going to be a beautiful and worthwhile study? Yes. And why? When you're like, it's about man and woman, he created them. I think the most important part of that is he created them. Why? Why did God create them? And that is to have a relationship with us. God wanted a relationship with us. He wanted a free exchange of love. And theology of the body is an exploration of what that looks like, using cues from the natural world and the metaphysical and so many great things. And I think that you're going to be inspired and love it. I have resisted learning anything about this for so long, but the passages I have read doing this book review have really, really spoken to me, partly because I've been looking in spiritual direction for over a year, and now somebody finally tells me I'm starting to understand a little bit about what spiritual direction is. By the time you've watched this, I will have done my summer intensive study on the art of accompaniment, which is produced by TOB, which is, I couldn't understand why before, but now it's 2 weeks away, and now I'm like getting it, because TOB is about that relationship. It is about the relationship of the Trinity as experienced by us humans. It just all makes sense. It's going to enrich your prayer life, is what I'm trying to say. How do you go about it? It's going to look different for different people. It is. But it speaks to the dignity of man, his worth. It speaks to so many beautiful things that are going to inform your faith and your life. I want you to get some form of this and start reading it and looking at it. I know there's some people who have very strong Catholics who are hesitant about it, and I haven't figured out why yet. If you're one of those, please just put it in the comments below. Don't just be dismissive. Lay out your arguments for us in the comments below so that we know and we can engage in dialogue with those and learn from them. Friends, I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to cut me off right here. If you've watched this far, God bless you. Please note that you can now basically, I have a tip jar. You can do, if on any premiere or live stream, I have all the supers, so super chat, super stickers, all that stuff. You can feel free to tip me. I have memberships coming soon, hopefully. I'm looking into some rewards for you and some fun little badges and emojis and things to give you. So please support my channel. It helps me continue my education and to buy more books that I can review for you. And it shows my husband that, yes, this is a valuable endeavor. We are helping people in their relationship with God. May God bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and to be gracious unto you. And may the good Lord bless you. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.